Part. Now this is we're gonna start about the creation. And before we can get to the creation, like I wrote in your note, I mean, you got to talk about God first because God is the creation. And the angels that we covered last week are part of the creation. They're on actually the first day. And if you look at the Bible, and you don't need to do this, you'll need your Bibles next week though, okay? Next week, we got to start using our Bibles for this. But today we don't need it. But it starts, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So the first thing he created were the heavens, and that's the angels. I covered that first because people felt, there was an interest in seeing it. It will be on our website next week, okay? So you can catch up to that. And I really recommend you do. I think it's worthwhile for you to get an idea of the angels. Of course, we're going to talk about them again in the creation here when we get to a little later on into the days, okay? So, but I want to go over one thing. One of the things, I see, some people I see before, are with us now. I've seen before in the previous years, and I'm so glad to see, all of you. But the one thing that I get out of doing this, and why I love it so much, is because I've learned that I need reminders. I need refreshers. I need to see it again. That I have done this now, the same program I'm doing to you, I first did it 40 years ago, actually 44 years ago. Each time I do it, I try to go back in the material and do a little more studying because I find a little more things. And I find more and more, and it's just amazing some of the things that I've missed not reporting, because as I become better read on it, I realize I should be saying certain other things. And it's amazing how if we don't do that, little things that we do in church services, for example, we take for granted, okay? And that's what I want to show you something. I read this I have this book. It's called The Law of God, which I think is an excellent book. I don't have it in my nomenclature at the end, the listing of the books. I forgot to put that one in there, but I see it over there in my library. I'll grab it and I'll mention it at the end. It's an excellent book. And it goes from the beginning of the Bible. It just explains things in a certain way. And it does a beginning as an introduction like I'm doing, exactly the things that I'm saying to you, of how we take for granted if we don't pay attention, okay? If we go through the same ritual all the time, sometimes we just don't, we miss points. The reciting of the Lord's Prayer, we say it over and over. Do we say it? Do we really say it with our heart and with meaning, or is it a recitation, okay? And I'm going to show you an example, and please, nobody's going to go to hell for what I'm going to show you now, okay, that we sort of mismanage in our church lives. It's just a simple thing to point out that just a minor, well, let me show you first, and then we'll explain it at the end. I'm always fascinated by people when they come to the church and they do their cross. I love watching them because they get so many different things. We get I call them banjo players, they do that. I saw one person like point, throw their fingers over into it. There's just so many. Every week there's a brand new one, a new version. But let's look at what the majority do. And this is my little creative body that I put together kind of quickly. It's kind of hard drawing with a mouse, but I did. And normally I would ask you to do your stuff, or I'll do your cross. But I'm going to do it for you because I see you do it every week. I see everybody, okay? And we always start at the top, right? We start here, and then we go down here where it shows, or 2. Then we go over to 3 and 4, and that is the cross. All right? Now, do we really pay attention to the cross? What is the cross doing? We do the cross, okay? And if I ask you, your thoughts probably are, to bless ourselves. Well, I really think God is the one that does the blessing, okay? I don't think we can bless ourselves. I think we can call on God to bless us, okay? And I believe that is the intent, that we're calling on God. So what are we doing? We're talking to God, okay? So we're talking to God when we do our cross. When we come to the church, why do we do our cross? To talk to God, okay? And in a way, we're asking for him to bless us. At the end of our prayers, we do our cross. So when you're talking to the Lord, okay, we should be attentive, right? And should do it properly, and should do it like they teach us in the Army, almost to stand at attention, sort of, and do our cross. I actually come to attention. My feet come together and I stand up. But look what we have done here. Now I think you'll all agree what I did, all right? And you can do it to yourselves, and you'll see that that's the cross that most people do. Well, look at this now. And what have we done is we've made an upside down cross. An upside down cross. And the upside down cross in the movies is what? Okay, you know, right? The sign of the devil. See, so if we did it, just went down a couple more inches, right, now we got the sign of the cross. So a little thing like that on something that is so basic to our needs, and that we've done since we were 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and maybe even younger than that, okay? We take for granted, okay? And so that's what these classes, I think, do for everybody. They do it for me, see, and that's why I hope you keep coming, because when you keep coming, then I keep studying, see, and I just love learning more and more about it. But we're going to talk about God the Father, since we started with explaining him, and we did our cross. The cross should go down to the belly. You can't see, right down to, oh, where is it? Right down there. That's where we should go, right? Okay. And then we've all learned the creed. We're not going to go over the creed right now, but the beginning. I believe in one God, Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth and of all things visible and invisible. Invisible world is the angels, the heavens. I believe in one God. And the reason that's in the statement is because everybody was believing in multiple gods. The Greeks, right? They had a God for everything, right? There's one God. And what is that God? Who is that God? Father Almighty. And who is he? The creator of heaven and earth and of all things visible and invisible. It's a powerful, powerful statement that's in our creed. And who for us men in salvation, I'm down to 4 now in the red, came down to heaven and was incarnate, the Holy Spirit and the Virgin Mary became man. Okay, why do I have that highlighted? I just want to point out that when we talk about the creation, who actually did the creation? God. Okay, well, when you go into the church, the next time we can get into the church, and we're starting to get find a schedule that fits the seniors and the juniors. You look at the ceiling, and who's looking down on us? It's Christ. Okay, Christ is on there, the Pantocrator. He's on there looking down on us because he is the one who gets the credit for actually developing the universe, the world, our world. This is his domain. Okay. That's why he's referred to as the Son of Mankind. This is his domain, and it's Christ that we see, because everything mentions the second line, and in one Lord Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God. Okay, begotten of the Father, light of light, true God of true. He's the light of light. He's the true God of true God, begotten, not created. Anyhow, and then we come to the big line where it says, exactly that we know that it's talking about Christ. So it's Christ that is doing the things that we're going to be talking about. And we're not going to, like I say, go over I hope, is my new one in there? Yeah, it is. Okay. All right. I'm just going to give you, we're going to talk about more internal things of God in a minute. But I find this interesting. My kids in Sunday school love this little thing we're going to go through here now. And this is where you're going to come in with your pencils and your papers there, your pens there, okay? You get your notepads out. And what I'm going to ask you to do is just listen to me, which I hope you do anyhow. We're just going to talk about the proofs of God's existence. Yes, there are proofs for God's existence. And there's also counter-arguments for all of them. Now, you all, are of the faith, but even of the faith, I'll venture to say that there are some of us that have questioned God, right? Questioned, is there a God? And the fact that you're on here now, I mean, I know that you have, prayed to God. I mean, there's no question that you believe in God. But I'd like to talk about some of the reasons here that there are for the proof that God exists. There are some of us, I spelled exists wrong, doesn't it? Yeah, no, the proof that God exists. Yeah, that's right. So the first one, cosmological, all right? And that's one that I'm going to ask you to draw. So if you would take your pencils and papers and just, like say at the bottom, I'm just going to do the first one for you so you can do it. Just draw a line from one side to the other. That's all I want you to do, okay? Go one side to the other, all right? And now that you all have that, right, now I don't have to show you anymore because I'm not going to show any slides on this. Now you're going to have to draw it. All right, this is called the cause and effect. The cause and effect means for every cause or effect, there is a cause, okay? So in other words, you can't have an effect without a cause. The cause causes the effect. So if you drew that line, which I hope you did, and let's say that line represents all the population in the world, okay? Right now, that's the whole population in the world. All right, now I want you to go 1 inch above that line and draw another line, but make it 1 inch shorter on each side. So you're gonna go from here to there, right above it, you know, let's say 5 lines above it or 4 lines above it. Just go over with, right over, you know, sort of bounce it out in the middle there. As a matter of fact, I'll show you that one too, just so that we get you going. So you're going to do something like that, right? Can you see it? All right. And what I'm going to say now while you're doing that, because I'm not going to do any more this time, that's all I'm going to do for you. You got to do the rest. All right. Everybody on the first line, okay, I think you will agree with this statement. If I say that they came from everybody in the line above. In other words, the line above are the parents, and the line below are the offspring, the children. Agreed? And I know you're shaking your heads yes, because that's true. Now I want you to go another inch above and draw another line, a little smaller, 1 inch indented. All right, so you're almost forming the triangle, right? You're going to get to that. So draw that line across. So that should only be a couple inches. That should be something about that size, all right? And then I can say to you, though, the second line that you drew, all of those people came from that new line that you just drew. And you would have to say yes on that because you said yes the first time, so this is the same thing. And so, yep, that's true. So I just did mine, so you better do yours. All right, and let's add one more above it. So this one's going to be maybe 1 inch wide. All right, and you know what I'm going to say? The line that we did just seconds ago, all right, came from all those people in the line that we just drew now. All right, do one more, okay, which should be about a 1/4 of an inch maybe. And then, so I'm obviously going to say the same thing. But then above that little 1/2 inch one, or as small as may be, put a dot, okay? Somewhere in this evolution here, okay, you just do the numbers and go backwards, you're going to come to 1, are you not? Okay, and that's, you can call that Adam and Eve, call that whoever it is, but it's going to come to a God, right? And that's because if you put Adam and Eve, let's write A and E there, okay? Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to the first line. The first line is an effect. The line above it is a cause, right? The cause of that line created people below. Go one line above that, now that's the cause. And the line below it becomes an effect. And you keep going up to the top till you get to Adam and Eve, that little dot that you put there, and that is the cause of the 1/2 inch below. So then, okay, continuing with cause and effect, the next step, the only other step above that is the cause. And then the cause being God. Now, atheists will counter this argument of cause and effect, and they'll say that you're just assuming that Adam and Eve, were created. We're going to talk about Adam and Eve once we get to the 7th day. But the point being, if something didn't cause it, then how did it come to be? Because we've learned from science that every effect comes from a cause, okay? So that is the argument of cause and effect. All right, you did really good. You can put a star at the top of your chart. All right, and you can relax now. I'm not going to ask you to do any more artwork. All right, so let's go to the ethical. All right, the ethical is good versus evil. And just think about that. All right, and these are all legitimate proofs of God's existence. I'm going to recommend a book to you later at the end that has all these listed there in summary form, and you can read them. I've read several accounts on all of these. Like I say, I even studied this in school, in college. The ethical, it really says that if there's no moral code, no ethics, then God doesn't exist, because God is the essence of goodness. So picture everything being evil, okay? You wouldn't have to work, maybe, right? You just steal everything, okay? You wouldn't have to, find money from anybody. I mean, you just go rob people to get your money. Can you imagine a world that doesn't have any moral code to it, any moral ethics? All right. Good versus evil is an idea, because God is all good. There is no evil in God. We'll talk about that a little later tonight. There is no evil in God, so God is all good. The definition of God is actually the absence of evil. So in God's world, where he exists, it's all good. Here now, the proof of the ethical proof is that we have that essence from God, who is the creator. He's given us all goodness, and he gave us something that we're going to cover later that challenges the goodness, okay? But there's no question that if there isn't a God, okay, there's no moral code, because there's nothing to present a moral code. God is the one that has the moral code. The moral code is in your heart. It can't be something that you teach people. To be a decent person is in you. It's in you from birth, and it could be developed more, but it's in you. So the fact that we have a moral code in the world, that it is there, it's challenged, and as we go on into the creation, we're going to learn why it was, how it was challenged, and that's why we have evil. But God created only goodness, and that's the ethical proof of God's existence. I'm going to go down to the historical one and come back to the teleological one, because that's my favorite one. But the historical one says simply, can everybody be wrong? Everybody, the majority of the people in the world, believe in a superior being. The Muslims do. They believe in the same God we believe in. You add them to the mix of Christians and which includes all the Orthodox and the Catholics, and you've got the majority of people believe in a God, and that goes back since the time of Christ. Okay, there always was an element of God, and it's just amazing that the brightest people in the world, do believe, in a superior being. Even, and some people may challenge this. If my son's listening, he will question me on this, because we argue this one all the time. But I did read a statement by Einstein, where he said that if you just look at and study all the elements of the world and the environments and all the details of life, you are going to have to come to a conclusion that there is a supreme something, a supreme being. And I mentioned that about Einstein because basically people think he's an atheist or agnostic or something. But even he recognizes that there is a superior being. Now let's talk about the teleological. I love this one. So I even did some pictorial. All right, so let's get into this. Okay. Let's say you're visiting from another planet, and you don't have that picture that's in front of you now. You don't have those in your planet. You don't know what that is. And you were sent down here by the big boss to figure out what this place is like. And you're just walking out in the woods because that's where you landed, and you see these things growing, and you see these things on the ground, and you're talking to your superior up wherever he is, and he asks what you're finding, and he said, well, I found these things over here. They're all different. And he asked, well, what are they like? Well, like I say, different sizes and different shapes, and they're all over the place. You know, and there's trees growing out of them and around them. There's things that are happening around these stones. So you know, there's no question that's that fact that came from something. All right. Now, and that's a natural thing. It's just a natural type of growth that's in there. They probably had some growth in there where they came from. Well, now let's take a look at something else. Let's say you walk a little further into the woods. You got a creek, and you find this there, right there. This is the hand of the guy from another planet. He has the same type of hands we have. And he's looking at this, and he's trying to describe it to his superior. He said, well, I just found something here that doesn't look like these things over here, the rocks, to us. And he said, well, describe it to me so I know what it is. Well, it's not like the rocks, I mean, or whatever these things are. I mean, those are all different. This is pretty much, I don't know the word. It just has a shape to it that the others don't have. And I can see if I look closer, there's a part moving in it. And well, that part keeps going around the same every time. I've never seen anything like this. I mean, you can see it all over. There's these other things there, but this is kind of different. I just don't know where that came from. And he keeps asking, the superior said, well, what is different between that and these other things over here that you saw, or these things back here? He said, I got it. This has a design. Okay, folks. So that's the proof of God's existence, teleological. Okay? Let me further elaborate. What is a watch? And if you think it through, a watch is merely a replica of the universe, of our not the universe, our solar system. Is it not? It tells us the time. Well, what's time? You know, the moon going around the sun going around the earth is time, right? Sun going around the earth. 24 hours every day with great precision. Okay, no change on that. Well, if you look at what this guy from another planet found, you know, you probably might you could not challenge yourself that it's different than the rocks, and that the one thing about this, it was design. And what does design mean? It means that it was made by someone, okay? But all this is a replica of what we have in our world today, the solar system, okay? And the thing is, it's even better than the solar system because the solar system doesn't need batteries. All right, this needs batteries. This needs care. This will go through atrophy if you leave it alone for a century or whatever. Right? But the world keeps going around perfectly, in tune. And now those who were on last week, and we talked about the angels. You remember the angels? And we talked about the 3 levels, and the level that was in the middle that we talked about. Do you remember those? Huh? I don't want to say what it is so that other people will go and look at it when we put it up there. But I'll give you one. The dominions, remember the dominions? This is the work of the dominions. It's their responsibility to make sure that the design, the fabric of the universe, the solar system, actually the universe, they're in charge of the universe, maintains itself perfectly, never colliding with one another, you know, always producing what it's supposed to do for the protection of mankind. Nobody would have any doubt in their mind at looking at a watch, right? And think through this now. No one would say that was natural, like the rocks. You all would say that was made, that had the D word, design. And design means somebody designed it, okay? Now, that applies to what this watch represents, the solar system. It is the perfect design, and it's the perfect design because it proves that there's a designer. Okay. All right, so how about that? That's a good one. Now we're going to go to one of the most difficult ones, and I'm just going to explain it quickly. I read it, I think I understand it. 40 years I've been trying to understand it. the ontological proof of God's existence, and then we're going to go into some more real interesting stuff. So don't go away, but let me just say this because somebody's going to find it somewhere and say, hey, you didn't talk about the ontological proof, because wherever you find the proof of God's existence, that's going to come up. It came from a guy named Anselm. I'm sorry, Anselm. His name's going to pop up here, I think, in a minute. And Anselm was listening to, he called them the fools, F-O-O-L, fools, plural. And the fools, you're saying, are those who didn't believe in God. And he was trying to explain to them. And he said, so Anselm, there is his name, is God is supreme because of his essence. That's what it means. Now, that doesn't make any sense to us, right? I mean, what does that mean? God is God because he's God? Well, here's how he explains it. There's two aspects of understanding. All right, there's, if you're an atheist and you say that I understand that God exists, right, but I don't believe he exists. You just understand there's a concept that people have that God exists, but you don't believe he exists. And so that's what that understanding means versus the understanding there is an existence of God. That's us, right, that believe God exists. So the blue is the fools, let's say, the non-believers. The green is the believers, okay? So there's two elements to the word understanding. So let's go to the next step. So the next step says, understanding there is an existence of God is greater than a thought that God exists. Because the green, if you understand that there's an existence, if you understand it, that's greater than the thought that you think might exist or might not exist. See? So a thought that God exists. All right, now let's go to the next step. But now this is me just in general, right? It's his theory. But this can't be true because there cannot be a concept where the creator is greater than the creator, than himself. And if you're saying that there's a thought process that everybody accepts, even though I don't believe in it, then if there is an understanding that God exists, actually exists, then you're saying that that thought process, that process is greater than the thought process that he may not exist, that he exists, but he may not exist. Therefore, the assumption that understanding there is a God of existence is false, and we can accept that God exists. Now, what you're going to do on this one, guys and ladies and gentlemen, is you go on your website and you type in Anselm, and you'll get a whole bunch of it, and maybe you can come back next week and explain it better. I can't think of any other way to explain it, and I'm going to go on to stuff that's easier and much more interesting than the ontological proof of God's existence. And that's the attributes of God. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. Okay, God is omnipotent and omnipresent. All right, now what does that mean? That means, number one, he's all powerful. All the power there is in God. There is no power outside. I mean, all the power is God's. And omnipresent is he's everywhere. Okay, you know, he's here in my office. He's in your homes. He's sitting with you people. He's everywhere. He's omnipresent. And when I go overseas, he's with me. And he's still here with my wife if she's back there, or if she's not with me on one of the trips. So we have to accept that. Now, what does that mean? Okay. All right. What that means is, it doesn't mean that his total essence of good. What that means is God knows everything. Okay. Now, I know you know that, but it's hard to understand because it also implies that since he's omnipresent, that he always was. And that he always is at the beginning of everything and at the end of everything. He knows ahead of time what we're going to do and what our results going to be. So that's why a lot of people say, well, why doesn't he prevent it? Well, we're going to talk about that shortly. But my point right now is that he's at the beginning of time and at the end of time. And you're going to see when we do creation the next week, when we start getting to the days, that the time level, the actual word time, was not created. Time was not created until the fourth day. There was no time before, you know, so when we say the evening and the morning were the first day, that's just verbiage for us to understand. And again, like I say, when we get to that, we'll explain it. But God, where God is, there is no time. Okay, there's no time where God is. It doesn't exist. That time is a thing that ends. You know, it has a beginning and an end. And with God, there's no ending, and with God, there's no beginning. So that means He's at the beginning of the cycle and at the end of the cycle. He sees everything, and that's why that's what makes Him omnipresent. Now, God, we're going to talk more about this. God, I'm just trying to put the levels of God's attributes so that you can understand where I'm taking this. Now, God is the total essence of goodness. I mentioned that earlier, and that's really a product that you don't understand. And I'm generalizing when I say you don't understand. I'm sure there's some of you who do understand, okay? But most people don't. They think they do. They say, you know, God is good. God is great. God is wonderful, you know, and He's all good. Yeah, then a storm comes along, a hurricane that kills people, a COVID virus that kills people, earthquake, volcanoes, tidal waves. And the first question everybody says, why did God allow that? Why did God let that evil exist? You know, if He's the God of goodness, you know, why is there evil in the world? Why did He allow that? And that's what we have to explain. That's what we're going to get into. Okay, but the attribute is that God is the total essence of goodness. Total essence of goodness. There is no evil in God. And like I say, a good definition of God for this understanding is God is the absence of evil. So looking at it another way means where evil exists, there is no God. Okay? Where evil exists, there is no God. We have saints, there was a saint, Tikhon, I believe his name is Tikhon. I forget exactly, I have to look it up, who was had this vision, was able to see a dinner table. And he saw the dinner table, which God loves, and He loves the people eating meals at their dinner table with the family, and there were angels around it. And then one of the husband, it may have been, or when somebody, a child, says something evil, the angels leave. The angels disappear, and in place he saw the devil appear, and he's witnessing, you know, this action. He's seen this. And that's exactly what it is. If I had the way I would explain it in class is if I had two cups in front of me, and one cup was filled with water. I should have done this. I could have done this here, but let's say one cup is filled with water, and this one over here is empty. Okay, so this one has water. This is empty. If I pour this water into this cup, okay, what happens? That this one becomes empty, and this one fills the space. That's exactly what the deal is with God. Okay, let's say this cup is all God here. This is God, and this is empty. This is so when you pour God in here, this is where God exists now. This is all goodness, and this becomes empty air, which is in this case, this analogy, this is evil. This is the devil. The devil appears immediately. Okay, it's not weeks later or whatever. If this is our understanding of God, that the absence of God is evil, that means as soon as God is not there, or as soon as the angels are not there, then the devil is there. Now, somebody's probably thinking they're going to ask me a question that I just said God is everywhere, and that's true. Okay, God is omnipresent. He's even above all these things that we're talking about. The only point I'm saying is that God is not the evil element in the world. He's not the creator of evil. He's not responsible for evil. Who's responsible for evil? We are. Because God did not create evil, and we're going to discuss that. There is no evil in God. Let's go to the next area. Okay, we get the point, guys. Let's go. There it is. So now we can get into this part. What is God's will, free will, predestination? I should have put question marks after each one of those. These are things that it's amazing. I get this in my Sunday school class all the time, predestination. The kids, I've had it, and when I've talked about predestination class, I've got people who are shocked when I tell them, as I'm about to tell you right now, predestination is not in the dictionary of the Orthodox faithful. There is no predestination. But you just said that God is at the beginning and at the end, and He sees all these things, and He's the only one that creates all the good, and He does all this stuff. Guys, it's like you go to a doctor. All right, you go to a doctor, and a doctor looks at you, he takes a test, he does this, he does that, and he turns around and says, hey, you're sick, man, you got cancer. All right, and you're going to die in 6 weeks. Right? How does he know that? Well, because he knows this is this inside, that's that, and this is the result. And that's what God is doing here with us. He gives us something that no other creature has. The only other creature, I shouldn't say creatures in this case, the only other essence that has this free will are the angels. And again, you got to see the presentation last week for a full understanding of that. But the free will, our free will, is that God creates us, but allows us to make choices. So if we decide to go and live in Los Angeles or San Francisco, better San Francisco, and live on a fault line, like some of my friends are actually living on a fault line. I got excited when I visited them because they were pointing it to me and I could see it. Wow, it's a really special thing there. And that fault line has an earthquake and they die. Okay, you cannot blame God, for building a house on a fault line. When a volcano erupts and everybody gets wiped out, you can't blame God for these people who put a house in front of a volcano. That's what a volcano does. Okay, and it's the same thing with all these things. We have a right to choose our own decision, and that went for the angels, and that's why we had the issue with Lucifer, as we talked about Lucifer, where he was cast out because it was his decision to be equal to God in his eye. And God couldn't have that. So he had Michael do battle with him, and the devil's now down here on our earth. But that's what free will is. Now, what's God's will? All right, let me explain it this way. God's will is that we have free will. Okay, that's God's will. Okay, it's not God's will that somebody gets shot by somebody or somebody dies from one of these events that I was talking about. That's not God's will. All right. What God's will is that you've got free will, and that free will means everybody can decide what they want. And God's not going to interfere with that because he gives it to everybody so that everybody can be judged properly. Everybody's created equal. Everybody has the free will. Predestination. Now you can understand, you can look at predestination. And it just does not fit into our system. Excuse me, let me get a little drink here. I've been talking for 3 hours now. Excuse me. So, predestination says, for those who don't know, I'm sure you all know, but it says that everything was preordained. In other words, everything we do was already, prescribed, already planned. That actually we have no free will, because you can't have free will if everything was already preordained for you, if everything is predestined. So, look at that word predestination and just think of it. Well, what does that mean then? That means that, is Hitler responsible for what he did? He killed everybody. If we believe in predestination, what he was predestined to do. He's predestined to start a war and try to build an empire, and he killed all these people. I use that as an extreme example, but it goes down to anything. There's no accountability in predestination because it's nobody's fault. Judas wasn't his fault. He was predestined to do all this. It's even in the Bible. It tells us in the Bible that God knew, Christ knew that it was going to be Judas who deceived them. Was that predestination? No. That's God's essence, right? He knows, God the man, Christ the man, Christ the God, knew that he was going to be betrayed by Judas. All right, that's all that is. But Christ, he had every opportunity not to. He had the free will not to, but he chose to. And so we do not by predestination. It holds no accountability for anybody. There would be no last judgment if we all lived in a world based on predestination. And there are many faiths that do, many current faiths that actually do believe in this world of predestination. So God's will, when we say that when you look on somebody and say that that somebody died, and we say, well, that's God's will. I don't believe they're saying it the way it really is. They're saying that God wanted this person to die. Okay, that's not the case at all. Okay, God's will is that the world has the system that He created of free will, not predestination, that everybody has the right to choose. And he gave us the seeds for people to learn about all this, to teach us, our priests and bishops and our saints, to teach us about this aspect of free will. God's will is the world, is the universe, okay, that is operating. God's will is that there are volcanoes because the lava promotes the fertilizer and wipes out dead timber, so that dead timber becomes burnt and becomes fertilizer for new trees. So more growth comes from it. This is God's will. God's will is that we live, in His presence, and He gives us everything to live in His presence, moral codes that we've come to learn and so forth. All these things are God's will. And we have free will, the right to choose one way or the other. I hope that's clear. It's real important. And we're coming near the end. I want to get some questions, but I want to talk to you a little bit. Let me see what's next week. I got a little more time here. I can go into, should I go into that? Yeah, let's go into that. Okay. Now let me just talk a little bit about the Holy Trinity and Christ coming down to create the world. Okay. Okay. So this is a bad example to show, because really this should be a circle. Okay. There shouldn't be any rigidity to it like I have it. But I couldn't find an example to use properly. So I was able to type on top of this. And there we are. So we got God the Father, we got God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. We're talking about the Holy Trinity. Okay. All right. So God, let me go down further. And let me just skip one here. We'll come back to it because I think it's interesting. Man, can I get it? Maybe I shouldn't. Where is it? Okay. Well, I'm going to save it for next week. Yeah, let's save this all for next week. It's going to take me off into other areas. So that's your tempt. That's your teaser for next week. I do want to talk to you about this gentleman. Some of you are new tonight. Abbot Trifon. And I'm going to recommend some books to you now. I recommend that you, on your iPhones, you download that app. What you're seeing is the app that he is on every day. Helen and I listen to him every day. I've been doing it for years as I jog, or as I exercise. I listen to him. He's a marvelous gentleman, and he's been so kind to accept an invitation and be our guest speaker on the 5th week. As you know, every 5th week we have a special guest speaker, and it's going to be Abbot Trifon on this September 30th. And I'm just alerting you now that you may want to download his app and start. It's the Ancient Faith Radio Network. You just go onto your app store and you find the app there. It's free. Just download it. Go to this section called, you see at the bottom, it'll say down here. It doesn't show it here. It doesn't show it at the bottom here. But it'll show podcasts. You hit podcasts and then hit the daily bread that you'll see. And then you'll see Abbot Trifon there. And you've got 4 choices. That tells you the Bible reading of each day, the saint of the day, the epistle of the day, and a few motivating words by Abbot Trifon. And I've gotten to love the man just by listening to him every day. He starts my day every day. And it'd be kind of good for you to get a little feel of him if you want. Like I say, it's free. Each talk that he gives is like 4 minutes, 3 minutes. Sometimes on special occasions, he may go 6 minutes, no more than that. But it's something that's very uplifting. And he has a book that I have here, okay, the Morning Offering. And each one of these has the day of the year. It's the whole year here, and each day has one of those things that he talks about on the air. So you can order his book if you want. I'll leave that on there for a little bit. That's this book down here at the bottom. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. Let me go back. Oh, didn't want to go that far back. What happened? Oh, goodness, what did I do? There it is. So the other book that I have, the New Style Catechism, this is a good book. This was given to me by a person that you would never heard of. His name is maybe you never heard of him, A.R.E. Villas. He's long gone. He was the first president of Goya. All right, first national president of Goya. He worked in the Department of Religious Education. He established that department. He's an archon, one of the most wonderful persons I've ever met. Wonderful person. I just love the man. I was very close to him. And he gave me this, and in this is just about everything we spoke about today. And that's right on top there. New Style Catechism. There's the author. That's where it's available. I'll leave that on for a second or so that you can get a hold of that. And with that, to the listeners who came in from all over the United States now, we've had people in from New Jersey. Next week we'll have some from many other cities. I think there may be some people from Colombia who said they wanted to join, so we may be getting more people even. And but we're going to sign off now. And if you have questions that you want to ask me, all you got to do is send them to right here. This is my email address. I'll be very, very happy. That's a G in the front here under that line. It's GBC, my initials. I'll be very happy to answer it for you. And as always, I always ask if there's any topics of interest. We've planned our schedule with the requests of what people have asked. So feel free to tune in and join in and be a part of us. So for those who are on the recorded network, we are signing off now.